Up our last keynote. We'd like to welcome Georgia Weidman to our stage. She's involved in a lot of cool things. She's won several competitions, as well as written the Pen Tester's Handbook, if you've ever seen that on Amazon. I know I have purchased that myself, and so we appreciate her coming out. She works for a startup company, or her own company, Shevirah, and we kind of got her on last notice, and we really appreciate her for making it happen and coming out for us. And we'll finish in about a half hour, 35-ish, and lunch will be served out here and over here on this level. So I'll let Georgia get started, and please give her a big round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, hey everybody. Like you said, I got added pretty late, so I guess I was expecting something a little bit smaller, but this is really big. This is really big, so I hope I can, rise to the occasion. But anyway, yeah, I'm Georgia, and I work for a startup, which basically means I don't eat very often, so if anyone wants to feed me later, that would be cool. But we're going to talk about mobile, but we're going to talk about security and mobile and things like that. So I kind of caught the tail end of the presentation before me, so it sounded like it had a lot of mobile in it too, so hopefully some of mine is somewhat different. All right, so if you think about like enterprise security right now, and I do a lot of pen testing, it used to be all I did, but now I do product, but still I do pen testing, keep the lights on. But anyway, so if you think about how we're doing security in the enterprise, we have like the big massive firewall thing, or maybe it's small, but it does a lot of things, and it's come a long way since its inception. If you've been in security for a while, you probably remember like the early firewall, and it was a really great idea on paper. It was like, we're going to block all the bad traffic, we're going to let all the good traffic through, and the bad traffic will just be blocked, and it will be magic, and it will be wonderful. And this was a really great idea, and the people who came up with this, they keynote whatever conference they want now. But it didn't really do too much in practice when those first, big clunky boxes came out, and it's like, we're going to solve all your problems today. It was more of, we blocked a lot of good traffic and a lot of bad traffic that did things like, Christmas tree packets and things like that sailed right on past. So it took security testers, people a lot like probably you and me, to make that industry come to fruition, to make it where it is today, where we've got like, the intrusion detection and intrusion prevention and stateful inspection and breaking open SSL and all that stuff on the one device. And it actually does, a pretty good job. It's certainly not perfect, but it's really come a long way. And it makes our perimeter of our enterprise a lot safer. And it took security people to do that. And so I guess my thing is, I want to see us do the same thing around mobile, because mobile has really shattered our enterprise. And when I say mobile, I mean not just, your phones, you've got your tablets, we've got our smartwatches now. Google Glass was a thing for a minute, didn't seem to last very long. You've got your, okay, somebody's not a fan. So you've got like your cars that basically have a phone inside of them. There's all sorts of devices, even people bringing just their own laptops. You don't think of a laptop as a mobile device, but if it's owned by somebody else and comes to work, it technically meets the paradigm. All this Internet of Things, and it might even be like, anybody bring a game system into the break room at work and just leave it there? That's, you're potentially your BYOD. So that's your new enterprise. Yes, you still probably have some servers, though probably a lot of them are in the cloud now, so you probably got your Dropboxes and things like that where you're uploading things. You've got servers in the cloud that you're running, but you may still have some servers on site, you may have some data centers, you may have some workstations, or maybe everybody just either gets issued a laptop or they bring a laptop. Maybe people don't come to work at all. Maybe they work from home. We like that in security, right? Working from home, and then come to a place like this and still be on the clock. Yay. But, so that's your new paradigm, right? The office, the enterprise, it's not what it used to be. It's not just a bunch of people sitting at desks, workstations, servers, and then that's that. Because if it was like that, that firewall would fix everything, right? But now the devices in your pocket are the perimeter. The firewall, it protects the perimeter, but the perimeter doesn't exist anymore. So now we have a problem. So yeah, I think my CEO stole this from somewhere. This is what the enterprise is supposed to look like, right? You've got some sites, you've got your firewalls, you've got your workstation servers, but yeah, that's not really what it looks like anymore. So we have our assumptions, and none of them are true anymore. Again, people work in offices, people work at desks. Basically, I suck at slides because everything I just said is now on the slides, so you guys can read. So again, reality, people at home, people at coffee shops, people at conferences, people generally in places that are potentially hostile. I think I just walked past the tape. I'm not supposed to do that because the camera only gets so far. But I pace, I can't help it. So, anyone working from home right now while they're at this conference? Anybody, working on their project? When I was doing conferences like all the time, that was my constant state. I was always doing reports. I was even actually, working on the project itself while I was at security conferences, or while I was at the airport, or while I was in the hotel that was probably used for security conference. So if you talk about hostile environments, I mean, these were some pretty hostile places. And I was doing my work, and it was going back and forth to the office or to the customer. It was on my phone or my tablet or my own laptop. And these were the things that I, as a business owner, had to deal with and hopefully do somewhat securely. And these are the kind of things that I feel like most enterprises and most security programs are not really thinking about too much yet. I mean, do you sit around and think about what happens when corporate data enters like the car of one of your employees over Bluetooth? Probably not, but that's our reality. So again, I don't know, my CEO likes these pictures. So mobility is huge. Mobility is everywhere now. Again, it's not just phones, it's all this BYOD, or choose your own device, bring your own device. Corporate issue you a device. I wish corporations would issue like smartwatches. That would be cool. Mine gave me one, but that's for research purposes. So, yeah. Employees are probably bringing their own devices to work. If they're not, then you're having to give them one. It seemed like, corporate issued devices was the thing for a while, but I guess people realized how expensive it was. Because, who has two phones anymore? I don't see that many people with it. It seems like there's a lot of BYOD, or kind of the hybrid of choose your own device, where it's like, we do not allow Androids here. You may have an iPhone only, but then you may get, some sort of, payback for buying one. And then, you're going to see also a lot of software as a service now. In terms of the enterprise, it's like when I first started working, right, I worked for IBM, and we had to use the products that we owned, so we used a lot of Lotus Notes, and it was interesting. But it was, we had the software on our laptops, that was the client, and then the servers were, hosted somewhere in IBM somewhere and maintained by IBM people. Again, we don't really do that now. We have, I use Dropbox, and I use, I should know these things. We just set up a bunch of stuff for software development. If any of you guys are real software developers, you have seriously left me behind. I was like, oh, SVN, I'm so cool. Now you've got like, Jenkins and Slack, and it's like this Jenkins thing like automatically spins up test cases. I mean, this is all stuff that's not owned by your organization. A lot of them have the option that you can host it locally, but most of, particularly the smaller businesses, are going to be hosting those in the cloud. That's yet another entry point potentially into your enterprise. Let's see the firewall try and fix that. So, in particular about mobile is their, if you will, uber connectedness. Mobile devices like to connect to stuff. They're promiscuous, particularly those with a mobile modem that are magically attaching to cell towers. They don't seem to be doing a very good job of it in this room right here at the moment, but in general, your mobile devices, they're going to like to attach to things. So your phones, you've got your mobile modem, you've got ability to connect to Wi-Fi, you've got Bluetooth, you've got near field communication, the list goes on of the potential connection points you have. some of your tablets, you're not going to have the mobile modem, but you've still got potentially the NFC. You've got like the ability to do payment stuff. You've got your Bluetooth. You've got your Wi-Fi. Then you have your car that also magically now has a mobile modem in it. If you've got some of the newer ones, you've got Internet of Things devices in your home. Some of them even have a mobile modem, but many just attach to the Wi-Fi. And then they have direct access to the rest of your home. Awesome. But, this is a really great thing for attackers. This is the sort of thing that attackers love, the ability to pivot from one network to another. If you're doing any like ethical hacking training, like OSCP or going to SANS or anything like that, that's probably something you spend a lot of time on, is moving from one network to the other. Like I break into one system, like I go in through somebody's website and, oh, awesome, they're hosting it locally. Can I get to other systems? Can I get to other networks in the enterprise? And mobile devices are great for that, because if I say come in through the mobile modem, say we send somebody a malicious text message with a link in it. It's like, download this awesome application. I'm your boss, and if you want to continue access to the enterprise, you have to download this enterprise mobility management application, says Mr. Bossman. And I, as the hapless employee that I am, I know all about email phishing, but I know nothing about mobile phishing. No one can send you malicious links in a text message. It's text, for crying out loud. How scary can text be? So of course I click on the link in that text message, I download the application, and I go on with my life. I'm still able to connect to the enterprise, so I'm happy. It doesn't seem to be a scary application. It's all pretty and stuff, and it was signed by the right people, I guess. So all is well. But now, as I go about my day, I have my phone and it attaches to my home network. It attaches to the corporate network when I go to work or when I VPN in, things like that. And the attacker, who is now on my phone through that malicious app, can now talk to other devices on all those networks, which is, again, really exciting for an attacker. This is something we like very much. But people might say, that's baloney. No one would ever download a malicious app off of a text message. That's completely absurd. Well, I find that people are finding this a little bit less absurd because finally the news is catching up with me. I've only been talking about this for ages, but I'm always seeing now, oh, someone got a malicious text message and everything went to hell. It's like, oh, you mean this really happens? But all right, so let's say, for instance, like that's not going to happen. So how are people going to get control of mobile devices? It's like, mobile devices are complicated, right? They don't work like other computers. They're much more complicated than that. Except, in fact, many of them are basically just a Linux system, which we all know about how to hack those, right? So you might have to spend a little bit of time with ARM assembly, which, I'm sorry, it's far too many options indeed for everything you want to do. But in general, it's completely within the same paradigms that attackers have been using since the start. And everybody's favorite rate, remote attacks. We love it when there's no user intervention required at all. But this is 2016. We should not be seeing remote attacks anymore. It should be too hard. The days of MSO 8067 are gone. It's past. Security is just too good for there to be remote attacks anymore. Well, not entirely. I mean, we do from time to time, both in the mobile world and the non-mobile world, manage to see a remote code execution attack happen. We saw a pretty big one called Stage Fright, which was, also kind of a client side, but it automatically loaded, so it became remote code execution. So, and we saw that about a year ago. Every now and then we see, another one that the media doesn't pick up on as much. Really, we should do talks about what the media likes and what the media doesn't, because it all seems so random. I mean, what's also interesting is, I mentioned that phones like to talk to cell towers. Well, cell towers can send like malicious carrier updates and things like that. Phones have a tendency to believe the carrier in air quotes. So you may also find yourself, attacked by a malicious cell tower. Hopefully not here. I mean, I have seen them hanging out at DEF CON before. There are companies that will sell you for enough money a fully functioning malicious cell tower. as researchers, there's companies that'll sell you a dumbed down one. You can build your own, but this is, a valid attack vector that malicious cell towers could be pushing updates to your devices. There may be some countries out there that as soon as you get off the plane and turn on your phone, all of your applications magically say it's time to update. Okay, maybe a lot of developers out there got really busy in the whole 15-hour flight, but more likely you're being subject to this sort of attack, malicious carrier update, that's saying, oh, these are updates for all your apps. So if you've been to some of those countries, you may have seen that. Some people may have seen them at some conferences. This year at Black Hat and DEF CON, I saw a few snarky tweets about, yeah, right, it's time to update 13 of my apps as soon as I walk into the conference floor. So, it's certainly a possibility. But, all right, so no remote code execution. Nobody bought a cell tower or built one, and none of that's happening here. So that brings us into the client-side attacks. We saw very recently in the media the Trident, the NSO group stuff that hit the media pretty hard about the unbreakable iPhone getting hit by not one, but not two, but three. And so I guess the Trident name, zero-day vulnerabilities, against one of the strongest platforms there is, and in a targeted attack, whether it was good or bad, state-sponsored, whatever, that's neither here nor there, but it was possible for a research group to come up with, the vulnerabilities to, once someone went to a specific target URL, take complete control of their iPhone. But it did require that someone go to, the link in the first place. There's certainly, in both the mobile and the non-mobile world, ways to convince people to go to links. You put up the access point here, and it has the Saintcon splash page and automatically redirects you to somewhere malicious that attacks your browser. That's been an attack for ages. You can do the same thing to mobile devices, redirect them somewhere when they attach to your access point, DNS, all that nonsense. So you've got plenty of options about forcing people to go places, but then you've also got the ability to have them, decide to go to a place, certainly. We see things like, malicious ads in the ad network. So by going to a non-malicious site, something that serves ads, they may also be automatically accessing malicious content unknown to either the hoster of the original site or the user. We've certainly got things like phishing, which, phishing never works, right? Phishing is not, the best way to get on anybody's phone. I'm being completely sarcastic because phishing is absolutely the best thing for getting access to anything. And, it sucks for really technical people like me who have terrible social skills because phishing has never been something I've been particularly good at. But the people who do the social engineering well, they're always going to defeat us, unfortunately. So you've got your browsers. You certainly got other applications that load content. You think about PDF viewers. You think about music players or video players. Again, the same sorts of things we've seen throughout security. The last speaker I heard talk about updates for things like Flash and Java. We certainly have the same problems in mobile. Maybe not necessarily the same exact packages like Flash and Java, but you've got applications that render content that are potentially not being updated when a vulnerability is found. And yes, mobile phishing. So we've got the traditional email phishing. It even starts to break down the security awareness training, just thinking about traditional email phishing, but on the phone. Because if you think about what you're learning in security awareness training about phishing over email, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to, hover over the link to make sure it's the real link. How do you do that in your mobile email application? How do you hover over it? There's not really a way to do that. So even the things that we're learning about how to avoid falling victim to phishing over email already start to break down over mobile. And then it gives us a ton of other vectors. I mentioned, text messaging. Text messaging is my most favoriteest thing in the world. It's also my most favoriteest way to phish. Certainly, you're limited in characters, but they've got URL shorteners and stuff. We certainly started to see them in the wild, SMS or text message phishing. You've also got lots of applications for communication particularly ones that, they hold up this banner of we are the most secure, we are the most private. You've got things like Telegram or WhatsApp, that they say, we're going to keep your chats private forever. We're using end-to-end encryption. We're doing everything right secure-wise, making it even more likely that users are going to kind of drop their security awareness somewhat in there. I mean, what's to stop someone from sending malicious links to malicious web pages or malicious applications on something like WhatsApp or Telegram? I mean, what is our current security paradigm able to do about that? Nothing, right? We've got Facebook Messenger, we've got all these other options. And these are all ways that our employees are potentially getting phishing. We've certainly seen, strides move forward to like automatically run like malicious attachments in a VM and see whether they're malicious or not, or automatically strip things out of emails. But again, all this is going to break down in this new mobile paradigm. If it comes in through WhatsApp on somebody's phone, or it comes in through Facebook on somebody's browser on their laptop, those devices that we have at the perimeter watching this stuff, it never saw it, so it never happened. We've also got things like QR codes. We had QR codes for this conference, right? I mean, there's a lot of push to scan QR codes. If you just leave random QR codes lying around. This was like DEF CON a few years ago, right, during the scavenger hunt when QR codes were first really becoming a big thing. I guess there were QR codes in the scavenger hunt, but somebody, decided it would be a great idea to like write on the big DEF CON thing when you first walk into the conference, like put a QR code like on the face and pretend it was part of the scavenger hunt. And you could just sit there kind of off the way and watch people come scan it, and then just watch the look of absolute horror as they realized they had just gone to Goatsy. So, QR codes can be fun, but they can also be malicious. It does have you, automatically open up a website or even download an application in many cases. So it's another ideal phishing target. Again, our social engineering security awareness training is not by and large covering anything like this. It's don't click on malicious links in emails. Yay for us. Again, all of these things being additional vectors. So then you have to think about like, what does it matter? Going from just being a security researcher where it's like, it's cool, I made the thing blow up or I made it do something bad. That makes me feel cool. I can go speak at conferences now. Like going into the enterprise, you have to make things, tie back to enterprise risk a little bit better. They want to know, like, is my stock going to drop if I get breached? Am I going to lose customers? Am I going to lose faith? Am I going to have to pay fines? I mean, these are things that CISOs have to worry about. So you have to think about, like, does it matter if I don't fix this? Okay, you proved it. Mobile's really scary, and our firewalls and our current security testing can't cover this, so does it really matter to me? And hopefully the answer is yes. That's at least what I'm banking on. So you think about all the data that you have on your mobile devices right now, both corporate and private. Think about if an attacker got access to all of those. And then think about, again, all the other locations that your mobile devices go, all of the other networks that they either directly access through like a access point, or like your home network or your work network, things that you VPN into, services that you automatically attach to. Like every time I take a picture, my phone automatically wants to upload it both to Google Drive and to Dropbox and to like every other thing automatically. So it has the ability to just upload stuff there and access those servers automatically. Thus, potentially, so does any other entity on the device. So you can also control the device. Things like, it could potentially like send social media messages on your behalf. I mean, nobody ever got fired for social media message, right? Yeah, so then, I mean, it's a great way to like, if you can't get people to answer to a random number, then maybe if you get access to one person in the enterprise's device, have that phone start sending out messages to make it proliferate. So that could certainly happen. Potentially also recording video or audio. Again, that never happened to anybody before ever, right? I mean, these are the things that could really happen. I mean, I actually have seen some enterprises actually start to think about what if like our board of directors is in, closed door meeting and somebody's phone is recording and sending it off site. So stuff to start thinking about. I mean, certainly pivoting as well. Again, I get access to one device. That device is at somebody's house. Magically, it comes to the office, and then I'm able to access all the internal systems. If any of you guys are, the security guy on site, I mean, you certainly know that inside your enterprise, you've probably got some things that need patching. Patching is hard, right? So getting direct access to all that, completely bypassing the perimeter. Like I heard a new term that I hadn't heard before, like north-south monitoring versus east-west monitoring. I don't know how I hadn't heard this before, but I literally heard it like 15 minutes before I came in here. And so monitoring data coming in and out, monitoring those connections like through the perimeter versus like what's going on inside the network. And if you're not seeing what's going on inside the network, you're potentially missing a lot, because I guess the idea is the malicious connection must come in or out at some point in order for the attacker to gain control of the systems, in order for them to steal stuff. It has to pass our perimeter. Thus, we should just really have to focus on the north-south. But unfortunately, again, with the enterprise perimeter being shattered and every device potentially being an endpoint of its own, like the mobile modem in my phone, even when I'm connected to the Wi-Fi, if I'm sending out data through the mobile modem, like in a text message or something like that, that's not going through the perimeter, nothing that you have sitting at the perimeter doing any monitoring, any intrusion detection, any of that is going to see it. So certainly we need to be doing more monitoring. So what to do? So I've said, everything's terrible. Mobile's broken down everything. I've said all of our work at the perimeter, all of our monitoring, all of our security testing, because we're certainly only testing desktops, workstations, servers, maybe some mobile applications. We test some applications or web applications, but we're not really like testing the security of mobile devices and the risk of them in the enterprise at all. So that's not very helpful. So basically security doesn't work, right? I've said that security doesn't work. Okay, that's not very helpful. What are we going to do about it? So here's what people have done about it so far. The security market as a whole, being the smart people that they are, realized, well, I'm making like $5 every time somebody has an endpoint. So if people have one laptop and one phone and one tablet and one smartwatch, that's potentially not one anymore, but 4 licenses I can sell for each employee. So what did we do? We went and put the word mobile in front of all our security products and started selling them to mobile users, often without making any changes to what the product does at all, making it, in many cases, functionally useless, in some cases even making the security of the device in question worse. But we're here to make money. What can we expect? So certainly. And a lot of companies, it's like, what are we going to do about this new risk? The answer is often, meh. Nobody else is getting hit with this. Why should we care? A lot of the larger companies are doing things like the enterprise mobility management. It's like, okay, we've got enterprise mobility management. That sounds cool. It sounds like it's doing security things. We've solved this problem. We get to hit our checkbox. They're not doing any, by and large, they're not doing any research into, one, what their needs are around mobile security, and two, like whether the enterprise mobility management solution that they've bought and hopefully deployed correctly has provided them any help with any of those issues. So I don't know that anybody likes to waste money, so generally speaking, I would like to think that the money that I spent on the enterprise mobility management was solving my problems, but by and large, I'm not seeing many enterprises do that. So what are we going to do going forward? We're certainly going to have to do better than that. Certainly saying, I'm just going to pretend it's not happening is no good. Certainly allowing vendors to, make potentially 4 or 5 times as much money off of us just by putting the word mobile in their marketing material is certainly not something we should be doing. And we should certainly require people who put out security software like enterprise mobility management to actually meet our needs around mobile as an enterprise. But, you know, the only thing that's going to make that happen is we as security people, we as CISOs, we as enterprises that are hemorrhaging money on security that doesn't work, you know, taking a stand and like requiring this to be true. But by and large, it's going to be security researchers who are going to have to prove, you know, what's true and what's not. So the enterprises are going to have to say, like, this is what I need. The pen testers are going to have to say, okay, this is your risk around mobile. You know, CISO's got to figure out, like, what are we going to fix and what are we not. And then the security researchers are going to have to, like, blow the top off all these just putting mobile in front of it things. I mean, we know a fair amount about some things that are just, you put the word mobile in front of it and now magically it's a mobile security product too. But certainly this industry has to mature. As I started out with talking about firewalls, I think we're pretty much at that same place that firewalls were in the early 90s around mobile security. And we've brought in this thing called mobile, and it's taken off and it's everywhere, and it's destroyed the security of our enterprise. And we've created these things that are supposed to stop it in the form of mobile security products. And they're just not mature yet. I mean, they're great ideas. Don't get me wrong. Enterprise mobility management is a great idea. Mobile antivirus, just a great idea indeed. But they're just not mature yet. And why would we make them mature if we're making money off of them anyways? You're not going to potentially make more money if you actually make it work, right? So until we give people a reason to make their stuff actually mature in the form of, you know, attacks and risk management and things like that, then, you know, this enterprise mobility management thing and mobile security, it's never going to come to fruition. It's never going to reach this, you know, apex that these firewalls have, because certainly they've become very strong and powerful and useful. And now we've basically rendered them irrelevant by destroying the perimeter. So let's fix it, I suppose. I don't know what the word monitory means. I guess it means monitor, or maybe it means money making. I probably should have asked that before I got on the stage, but you know. So yeah, thoughts for people going back to their enterprise. Say the word monetary or monitory. Yeah, monetary means money, so I don't know what monitory means. But anyway, giving or serving as a warning. Okay, cool. I don't know. Like I said, my CEO helped me with these slides. So what I would advise you to do is bring mobile into your security program. You know, you've probably got, you know, potentially phishing people, and you're potentially doing pen testing, security scanning, code review maybe. You know, you've got things that you're doing for security in your enterprise. But we need to bring mobile into each step of those. We need to see that we're assessing the risk of mobile in the enterprise. You know, we've potentially got all different kinds of devices with, you know, we saw in the last talk, it was a lot of stuff that were out of date. You know, there were lots of different Android devices and lots of iPhones that were potentially out of date. You've got your jailbroken, more Androids than iPhones. You've got all the applications that come with each of those devices, as well as what the users have installed. But these are all things that we need to be assessing the risk of them and figuring out, like, if there is a malicious app in our enterprise, or if someone falls victim to mobile phishing, or someone accesses a malicious link and someone gets access to one of those mobile devices, and one of those mobile devices is potentially attacking other devices like traditional servers and workstations in the enterprise, like, what is our potential risk? I mean, the only way to look at it in this day and age, when it's like you see the election hacking thing and it's like, oh, the Russians like stole the databases, and it's like, when you put them internet facing, you should have just expected that. Like, security is just too hard to make a 0% risk. So the only way to do this is to pretend the bad guys are here, to assume they are going to get in, and build our risk management profile around it. Like, I did this hospital once. I did this pen test for this hospital. I don't know that it was even a hospital. It was some medical thing. And it was like their security was pretty much crap. I got in to like everything, you know, old missing patches, basic like MS 08, 067, click the button kind of stuff. But once I got on and I was all excited, look at me, domain admin, it was like they had a second like software thing with a separate password on each of the computers that I had to get into if I was going to access any patient data. I mean, certainly then you've got password attacks and like, is this software itself secure? Can I reverse engineer it? Things like that, which certainly was another story for another day. But I mean, even in that, they made themselves way ahead of most enterprises, where as soon as I got in, it was all over because it's all in people's documents folder anyways. So, you can go a long way just by assuming that the bad guys are on your enterprise network, and especially assuming that your perimeter and any monitoring you're doing in and out is not necessarily seeing the whole picture. Because until the mobility came, it was absolutely true. Obviously, you're going to have to be able to see it coming in or out of the enterprise through the perimeter, because that's the only way in or out, right? Not anymore. So get an idea of what your risk is potentially around mobile. Pretend there is a malicious app in your enterprise, or there is a malicious device in your enterprise. What can it see? Like if you have only a guest network and all of the mobile devices, including the corporate-owned ones, are all only on that guest network on their own VLAN, and they can't access workstations or servers or anything like that, anything potentially sensitive, I mean, you're way far ahead of the even, large to medium businesses I've seen that just like post the Wi-Fi password on the bulletin board, and that's that. So I think we do need to be monitoring these risks and, trying to figure out what we can do about it, making that industry around security of mobile mature. So it's particularly important that we do this periodically. A lot of places, we do a pen test every year, and then we come back and it's exactly the same, and then there's, the last year's worth of vulnerabilities too. And, by and large, it's the same network. How many more workstations should they really deploy that year? But with mobile, it's completely the opposite. I mean, every day somebody's dropping their phone in the toilet and getting a new one. And then the risk profile around that user completely changes potentially. Or, the smartwatch comes out, so a bunch of people get them. I mean, the day that the iPhone came out and the first CEO brought it and said, I'm going to put this on the network today, and the security people are like, well, no, I don't think so. And then the CEO fired them, and then, that was when the day security died, if you will. So certainly it's going to continue to change. I mean, it was mainly in Europe that I've seen this, but like with the electric cars, you'll have like, companies will have like the electric car charging stations like as part of the company, and I've always wondered like how much is that actually connected to the enterprise. Maybe it could be, as that gets farther on. Certainly, Internet of Things devices you've got in the enterprise, and things that people have at home, children's toys. I mean, it's going to get scarier and scarier. So we need to continually assess this risk, because the risk you assessed 2 days ago may not be true anymore. So I've used up all my time. I hope I had something interesting to say. I'm basically moved from just security person who was completely technical and managed to stay alive through consulting to, trying to be, a real business person. So I feel like everything I say is half security and half business, and thus alienates everybody. So sorry if this was really boring. I tried. So yeah, this is me. My company is Shevirah. We want to fix these problems. It always makes me feel really nasty to talk about like selling stuff on stage, so I won't. But, if you're interested in buying stuff, or you have a lot of money you want to part with into like a high risk investment, come see me.